What exactly is meant by the concept of the hidden Messiah in light of the book of Mark? Some believe it to mean that Jesus was trying to keep a secret, but it really refers to the idea that Jesus made a conscious choice about the nature of his messiahship. He chose suffering as the pattern for his mission. How different this was from what the Messiah was expected to be, and as you can guess, this caused many people to misunderstand what Jesus was all about. Mark is a narrative that looks at both the life of Jesus and the journey of the 12 disciples toward a discovery of the hidden nature of Jesus' messiahship. Our guide through this journey in Mark is Dal June Wan, Executive Director of Curriculum Planning for the United Methodist Publishing House. Reverend Wan has translated the Gospel of Mark and written the United Methodist Confirmation Resources in Korean. He was also the editor of the Genesis to Revelation series.
The Gospel of Mark carefully presents the story of an often painful journey of the 12 disciples, from their initial call to be disciples to their final understanding of Jesus as the hidden Messiah. The first stage of their faith journey is trying to understand who Jesus is. From the beginning of the book until the middle of the chapter 8, we can see how the 12 really don't understand the meaning of his parables and teachings. This failure isn't a simple misunderstanding on a few occasions or some momentary weaknesses on the part of the 12. But time and again, Jesus questions his disciples' lack of comprehension. In chapter 4, verse 13, Jesus asked the 12, "Do you not understand this parable?" And again in 7:18, he asks, "Then are you also without understanding?" Their failure to understand was because the 12 had a basic blindness to the real mission of this hidden Messiah. They were so much concerned about themselves and their security and success and political triumph in this world that they could not penetrate the simple parable of the sower or see what this had to do with the coming of the kingdom. Their agendas were completely different from that of Jesus. Their vision was clouded because they saw only the glory and honor surrounding Jesus and his mission, and they could not see the suffering that must also come. The second stage in the journey of the 12 begins when they seem finally to realize that Jesus is indeed the Messiah, but they still misunderstand the nature of his messiahship. In chapter 8, Jesus asks the disciples directly, "Who do you say that I am?" Peter says, "You are the Christ." At last they appear to have a grasp on understanding this hidden Messiah. Yet as Jesus explains the suffering nature of his messiahship, Peter rebukes him. Jesus speaks of himself as the Son of Man who must suffer. He then reformulates the call to the disciples as a call to follow him in suffering. To acknowledge the suffering Son of Man is to recognize the call to follow the hidden Messiah in suffering. A suffering Messiah was a foreign concept to them. The Messiah, according to Jewish understanding, is to come in glory and honor. As the King of Kings, he was to be a triumphant warrior who would help throw off the weight of Roman oppression and would free Israel. But suffering, rejection, death, the 12 had not included these things as part of their plan for the Messiah. Jesus teaches his disciples in chapter 8, verses 34 through 38, "Take up your cross and follow me." They were finished fishing and were now to become cross-bearers. Here again, the gospel shows the heart of the conflict between Jesus and the 12. Jesus had chosen the way of suffering to be the nature of his messiahship. But listen to what James and John wanted. In chapter 10, they asked Jesus, "Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory." Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking." They didn't see the deep sacrifice that their request called for. They were still blind to the suffering nature of Jesus' messiahship. They were trying to find security in this world. But how does one wave to the adoring crowds when one is carrying a cross? Following his transfiguration, Jesus charges his disciples not to disclose who he is. He has shown them evidence of the glory to come, and this presents a danger. Because the 12 don't know what lies ahead, a distorted picture of Jesus' messiahship was possible. A distinct emphasis on Jesus' passion in the last half of the gospel shows how important it is to the writer of the Mark for a full understanding of the suffering Son of Man as the nature of Jesus' messiahship. Now the disciples come face to face with the reality of suffering and the cross. This third painful stage of the faith journey completes the canvas. Jesus has made a triumphant entry into Jerusalem. There's an expectation of the culmination of the plans of the 12. Jesus is the glorious King who will now fulfill his role. But Jesus is arrested, Jesus is rejected and beaten, and finally Jesus is crucified. How would the 12 react to the destruction of their plans? Chapter 14, verse 50 says, "And they all forsook him and fled." The 12 rejected Jesus as the elders had. They could not accept the suffering nature of the hidden Messiah. The final rejection came from Peter. When he denied Jesus publicly, he rejected Jesus' call to suffering. To the 12, the cost of the hidden Messiah was too high a price to pay for the status and power that they sought. The writer of Mark ends the story of the 12 here. But to the women who went to his tomb, the hidden Messiah was revealed in God's true power and glory. In the personal experience of the power of the resurrection, they came to understand the true nature of the hidden Messiah. It was a new beginning for the followers of Jesus. Discipleship begins with repentance and response to Jesus' call. It can only happen when one fully accepts the power and suffering nature of the hidden Messiah. We know the story of the 12. What will our story be?
If this is the end of the story of the 12, then new authors need to be found who know the whole story and can truly comprehend its meaning. Will we as disciples of the hidden Messiah put the pen of our lives to paper and write new chapters for the times in which we live,